I'm an addict. I don't know why I've got the giggles. I've got the giggles. I know why, because I just saw these drinks here like that, and it reminds me, everyone used to call me Lizzy 2 Drinks. I've got my, so it just, I don't know, I got a memory. It was really weird. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for your share, Glenn. It was lovely to listen to you. You said everything that I was going to say, so thanks a lot. I'm going to I'm going through, okay, it's weird being here. It's weird being in Covent Garden. I just got my heart is going like that. I just got like a flood of memories from different spaces in time. I used to be here a lot in the 80s, and my dad, his memorial service was in St Martin's in the Fields next door. He was a famous opera singer, and he was an alcoholic, and I must have caught it off him. My whole family, I've got a very small family. My mum, my dad, me and my sister. My mum and dad were both only children, and my dad was an alcoholic, and my sister's got 41 years clean in the rooms of NA. We had quite a strange childhood. My dad would just go off and sing opera in different countries, and we'd sort of go with him, and no one thought he was an alcoholic because he had this huge personality, and it was covered over by, outlandish behaviour and stuff like that. But from quite early on, I think I was a little bit odd. I remember I was brought up in Ladbroke Grove, and we lived in this modern 60s building, and I stood on the top floor looking out my window at all the other kids playing in the communal garden, and I felt completely and utterly separate from them. I was about 2 or 3, and I just remember feeling like I was in my own little bubble. It was really, really quite odd. And then I got my little post office, and I was very OCD. I used to write DW on everything and put it on the spike. Done with. Really OCD behaviour appeared quite quickly. But this feeling of separation was really, really strong. I felt like I was just floating around, not connected to anything. I don't know if anyone can sort of relate to that, but it was a really strong feeling for me. And I was desperate for attention. And I had this little friend down the block called Michael, and I remember going into his house. I was 7. I was like, Michael, come and play with me in the garden. He said, no, I'm watching Batman. So I went down to his kitchen and set fire to it. I turned on all the gas, I turned on everything, and then I went out swimming. And when I came back, there were 5 fire engines outside, and I'd burnt down his kitchen, and just because I felt rejected, which is, I don't know, thinking back on it, I didn't really feel any remorse. And then my sister grasped me up, and my parents threatened to send me to Borstal, and I was only like 7. But I had a really strange experience of being a kid. I was really self-aware, and my mum, she'd go right off to school, and I was going, I'm not wearing that. And I'd go through about 5 different outfits before I was prepared to go to school. I don't know if that's addiction or not. I think it's certain traits of addiction. Self-obsessed, really fearful of not being loved, fearful of being rejected, and feeling alone. So my dad used to give us little glasses of red wine with Sunday dinner from a very young age. And then it all kind of kicked off when I was about 11. I just started drinking frequently and smoking weed, and with my sister, who's 5 years older, and she was at it already, and she took me to a friend of hers in Notting Hill Gate when I was 12, and they were all doing heroin, and I had my first line of smack at 12, and I threw my guts up, and then I asked for more. So yeah, you know, my addiction kind of went in three quite distinct phases. You know, the first 9 years was brilliant. I loved it. You know, I was getting alcohol is a drug. I'll move on to that later because I never thought it was. But I was round here. I was, you know, partying at the WAG club, and I was, you know, I was working in World's End for Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, and I was hanging out with all these kind of eccentric people in the early 80s and just getting off my nut. And then I got a record deal with EMI, and I've had quite an unusual life. And by the time I was 21, loads and loads of my friends had died. I remember going to 6 or 7 funerals by the time I was 17. And then, 21, 22, it started getting serious, and I kind of crossed that, you know, that invisible line into proper, everyday, proper addiction, like having to have that drug, the physical and mental compulsion, obsession and compulsion to use. I got married to a geezer who worked in just over there in the ballet. He did all the sets and everything in the ballet. He was a nice person. And he said, "Oh, did you want to marry me?" I was like, "No." Let me think about it. You know, Danny, his name was. He was nice. And he asked about 6 months later, and I thought, well, you know, I'm 23. Maybe that's what you're meant to do when you're 23, isn't it? You're meant to get married. So I married him and got him into, you know, all the hardcore drugs, and moved to Maida Vale, Harrow Road, and that was pretty dark, that next 10 or 11 years. That was just in a basement flat, in the dark, going out in the dark, using drugs. So, you know, briefly, that was the next 10 years, and then come 2000, you know, I could go on and on and on and on, but I'll spare you. By the year 2000, I was done with heroin. I couldn't manage. I couldn't manage it anymore. I kept getting raided. I remember I was on the toilet smoking a pipe of crack, and suddenly all these policemen were in the bathroom, and I was like, "Get out, what the fuck are you doing in here?" And they tore down the back of the sofa looking for everything, you know. I was selling drugs, I was dealing, I had very strange characters in my house with, like, weapons, and it all got really quite dark and nasty. And so, the year 2000, I don't remember the millennium because I was off my nut. But in February, I said I've had enough. So I went to and experienced my first detox, right? Like, I've been all over the world as well, you know, like changing location, and I know, let me go to India and I'll stop taking heroin. So I took some methadone to India and just ended up in an opium den, you know. It was like I couldn't get away from drugs. I'll go to Jamaica and I'll just stay there for a bit and see if I can stop. And, you know, so changing location didn't work. Changing boyfriends didn't work. Changing the husband didn't work. Nothing changed. Nothing worked, you know, because I didn't realise it was me I blamed everybody else for all my problems. And it was very, very kind of insidious as well, because I'd have really, really bad patches. And then something would turn up and it would confuse me. Like, I started doing voiceovers for a living. So it's not a daily job, but it pays really, really well. And so I could just about get it together to go to the BBC or do a documentary or something, you know. And then I'd get loads of money for it, and so I was all right, and then I didn't have to go to work again, so I could just use. So it was very confusing for me. It just foxed me all the time. I thought I was all right, and then I wasn't, and then I thought I'd be all right. You know, it was like that, a real up and down kind of journey. But the year 2000 came, and I knew that I had to. How old was I? I think I was about 34 then, and I had to stop using heroin, because it was. I thought heroin was the problem, you know. So I went into this detox in Lisson Grove, and within 20 minutes I'd spotted the next fella. If I get to go out with him, everything will be all right. I'll stop taking heroin. I'll get with Luke, his name was, and everything will be all right. Never mind that I was married. I didn't really come into it. So after 3 weeks of being there, I detoxed and everything, and he'd been kicked out for being with me. And then 20 minutes after I left, I went and bought a bottle of white wine. Was that someone trying to get in? What is that? Is that the police?
I'll be back to do
your I thought, so I put down heroin in the year 2000 and just picked up, I drank simultaneously the whole way through, alcohol and drugs. I never didn't have a glass in my hand. It was the first thing I picked up and the last thing I put down. But I really didn't believe it was a drug. It was a drink, alcohol. It was legal. You could buy it in every shop. You can't have pasta without some red wine. It was just, it was just something that was natural to me and that I'd watched my dad do. Anyway, so then the third and final stage of my addiction started kicking into place, and that was the most horrendous 12 years of my life. I got with this fella from the detox, and I didn't know it, but he was extremely violent, and then he just mashed me up for like 12 years. I'm going through something at the moment, which I've never been through. I'm coming up to 12 years clean. I'm coming up to the age of 59. I got clean at 47. And I've been doing some trauma therapy. And like I said at the beginning, when I felt really disconnected from everyone else, I felt like I was floating around in my own sort of bubble. And recently I've been doing this trauma therapy, and for the first time in my recovery, I've connected with the violence. I've connected with what happened to me. Like, when I got clean, it was just like, that Lizzy, the 35 years that I used, that was that woman. It didn't feel like me being clean. It felt like someone else. And recently, very recently, I've connected with what happened. And I feel so rageful and so angry and so sad that I'm not quite sure how to manage it yet. So I'm kind of going through that at the moment. When I first got here, I didn't have any teeth. I had to have my nose rebuilt with a piece of my rib. he went to prison. It was funny. I moved to Kent. I thought, I know, like I live by the sea. Everything will be all right by the sea. I like the water. So me and this fellow went to live in Kent, and I ended up sort of in this asbestos shed with my 2 English bull terriers, and him just battering me. I mean, you know, I used to chase me around the house with an axe and some rubber gloves on, and I had to hide. It was insane. My life was insane, and we were smoking crack. And by this point, I was on tramadols and loads of opiate-based drugs that I could get my hands on from the doctors and from friends and stuff like that, and drinking. So, that was really, really, you know, I got to like 45, 46, and he, the head of domestic violence in Canterbury, she was coming round to the house. She came around 85 times one year because she was sure that I was going to be killed. And I would go, fuck off, you can't, you know. I was like, I really hated her coming. I thought she was interfering in my life. I had it covered, you know. And I couldn't leave. I was bonded to this violent person. If I left, I would have to stop using. If I left, I would be moving away from what I thought was love. I believe that addiction is a lot of mental health, and I was fucking nuts. You know. Oh no, I don't care if I swear. It's all right. I'm 59. I can swear. So he got put away, and then I was like asking to go and visit him, and the whole left-hand side of my body was black from bruising, and he said, "You're not coming in here just to visit me. You look like, you know." And thank God, you know, we even tried to have kids together because I thought that would make him happy. And he was going, "You can't have kids, you're a geezer bird. People, they only talk to you because you're with me." But it turned out it was his issue. He couldn't have kids. Thank you, higher power. So I didn't ever have any children. Anyway, so that was the third and final stage, and I couldn't pick anything up. I was such an alcoholic. I had to have a straw in a bottle of vodka because I couldn't pick it up. I think that alcohol for me was certainly the worst drug I've ever taken. And I still didn't believe it was a drug. Anyway, you know, it came to it. He got taken away. I moved someone else in. He was a wanker, you know, so it just got to this point where I was just like, I'm going to go and walk into the sea and just not come out again. And it was the very beginning of December 2012, and instead of walking into the sea, I phoned my mum. And she'd been waiting for like 30 years for this phone call. And I phoned my mum and I said, "Mum, can you help me now?" And she'd been waiting to help me, and thank God she was able to help me. And within a week, I was in a rehab. And that was the beginning of my life, my second life. I wouldn't want my old life back. No one would want my old life. So I feel so blessed because I got given a second chance. I got a second life. And it's been extraordinary. It's been an amazing spiritual experience. I'm not a religious person. But it turns out I'm a very spiritual person. And I kind of, I didn't know where I was. It could have been Timbuktu, but I think it was somewhere, I can't even remember where I went. Somewhere near Reading or something. Woking, it was somewhere near Woking, I went. But after this, I had this detox off alcohol, and I came down, and it was snowing, and there was this really beautiful, really old oak tree outside the window, and it was flood lit, and it was nighttime, and these snowflakes were just resting on the branches of this oak tree, and I was just like, that was the first time I'd noticed a tree, or the weather, or I just became awake, just like that. It was amazing. It was amazing, and I felt so grateful to be alive. And I knew that was it. I knew I wouldn't go back. I knew I couldn't go back. I knew for sure I would die if I ever went back. So I was so broken that any surrendering was already done, if you know what I mean. I didn't really have to surrender to the program. I didn't have to surrender to any suggestions because I had no idea how to do anything. I didn't know how to do anything. So when people gave me suggestions, I was like, okay, thank you. And I just did what I was told. I moved back in with my mum. I got convicted of fraud 3 weeks after I was 3 weeks after I got clean. I got convicted of fraud for being on benefits and benefit fraud. And just before, I forgot this bit, just before I got clean, I was made bankrupt by Her Majesty, and to the tune of £98,000, and they made me homeless. So that was part of the reason I asked for help, because it was like everything, physical health, financial misfortune. Spiritually completely bankrupt, financially bankrupt, physically bankrupt, everything, and it all came in one big hit. And so my mum took me back in, and I moved in with my mum. And it was really weird because I was like 47, but I felt about 12. It was really, really odd. And I was living with mummy. Well, after 30 years or so, I was living with mum, and I felt about 12. And I stayed there for 2.5 years, and I went to meetings, and my home group was Hammersmith Friday night, and I went to Chiswick on a Sunday night, and one of my lovely friends is sitting there, and I met her there. And, I just did what I was told. It took me 10 years to work through the steps. I got a sponsor at a year clean. By this point, I'd been to loads of NA abroad. I was a nutter. I was really mad. I was really loud and really anxious and really, attention-seeking. And I thought that I used to be an extrovert, but actually it turns out I'm an introvert. I find solace in my own company. I like being quiet. I like reading and, but I was nuts for the first couple of years. I really, really was. And then I started in earnest doing the work. And I really remember enjoying the spirit, like steps 3, 7, and 11. I really like those kind of otherworldly steps, The ones I didn't like were the ones with the lists. It took me 2 years to do step 4 because I couldn't fucking remember anything. I couldn't remember a thing. And you got to... And over the years, memories come back, like today, just being here in Covent Garden. So yeah, what I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter how long it takes to do the steps. as long as you do it. And I did it, and I had a really, really caring, loving sponsor who was just really empathetic, and she was like, it's okay, it doesn't matter, just carry on, And what happened then? Yeah, I started getting my physical health back together, and I got some teeth, and I got my nose rebuilt, and I met someone in the rooms who is kind of like the love of my life, and because I'd never been out with anyone clean before, and he was also in the rooms, and we dated for 3 years. He lived somewhere else. He lived out of London, and I lived in London, and we dated for 3 years, and then he came and moved to London. And we're still together. We just celebrated 10 years together. And one of the most amazing things about my recovery is this kind of amazing ability to be able to connect with other humans. Because I don't know about you, but I never connected on any level apart from transactional, what you got, here's the money, what do you want? So learning how to speak with people, learning how to connect with other human beings was a huge thing for me. Learning how to take care of myself was a huge thing. I didn't have any... Oh, what time is it? Can I stop soon? Okay. Learning how to gain a bit of self-respect was a big one for me. I felt really self-piteous for a long time. I blamed everyone else until I did step 4, and that was an enlightening thing, to realise that I had a part to play in every situation I'd ever been in. It wasn't just everyone else's fault. So taking accountability for myself was an amazing thing. I've grown up in it. I've grown up. And I feel... I'm starting to feel my age now, and it was really weird because, I started using when I got my period at 11, and I got my menopause the year I gave up drugs. The year I got clean, I got my menopause. So my whole sort of productive life as a woman was taken up with using. And it's like going from 17 to 58 in one fell swoop. It's like, where have all those years gone? Felt, there's been a lot of grief. I think I'm grieving at the moment. I'm grieving the life that I wasted. But maybe it's not a waste. I don't know. I mean, I wish that I could have all those years back. I really do. And if anyone in here is new and thinking about getting clean, just do it as quickly as possible so you can have a proper life. Working as well. I'd never had a normal job. I'd been a model when I was young. I had a record deal. I was a voiceover. I'd never had a normal job. And when I got clean, I started working for... I had this key worker, this mental health key worker, and he said, I think you'd be good at this job. And I went and did a training course, and I went and worked with people with paranoid schizophrenia for 8 years. And I really wanted to kill myself. It was really, really depressing because there wasn't much chance of recovery. Do you know what I mean? It was in Hackney as well, and all these poor guys with serious paranoid schizophrenia, they're all on these really heavy drugs, and they're all smoking crack in their supported housing. And I found it really quite depressing, but I stuck at it. And And then I came to meet some other women in recovery who'd built this wonderful special kind of recovery unit just for women. And I started part-time there. And it's just for women, and it's where I work now, and it's just for women. It's for women who suffer with addiction, who have gone through lots of trauma, who maybe come out of prison, who suffered with domestic violence, and it's a really, really fantastic job. But in a selfish way, I get a lot more from working there than maybe I give. I don't know, but it's a job. It's not really a job. I just go there, and it's like I get as well as I give. It's a really beautiful thing. And I used to hate women. I used to think they were really jealous of me. I used to think they were really threatened by me. It turns out it was the other way around. I was really, really jealous of other women and really insecure and really codependent. So all of these things over the last 11 and a half years, 12, coming up, December the 11th, I'll be 12 years clean. And I can say that with my hand on the heart. I mean, I know it's just for today and a day at a time, but I don't want to say that in case something happens. But I really hope that I will still be clean on December the 11th. So I've kind of grown up. Physical stuff is really important to me as well. I feel like a really holistic being. I'm mind, body, and spirit. And I never did any exercise before. I never exercised. What are you talking about? Give me another drink. Well, I started going to the gym, and I'm not one for spinning or anything that makes me sweat a lot, but I really like being in the water. I feel at one with the water. And so I do lots of exercise in the water, and I do Pilates and yoga and stuff like that. And if I don't go to the gym twice or 3 times a week, I start going a bit doolally. So I go to meetings, I go to the gym. And my other great love is traveling. I've found a favourite spot in Costa Rica where I can be with the animals. I go to Costa Rica every year for a couple of months, and I just watch monkeys and toucans and sloths, and I go swimming in the sea, and I go for hikes in the jungle, and I really love being trees. I sound like a hippie, but I love a tree. I really do. And I like being with the trees. In Costa Rica, you can almost hear them breathing. You can almost hear the jungle breathing. It's just amazing. I love traveling. I love architecture. I love art. I love movies. I love eating. Oh my God, I love eating. I've been 7 stone and I've been 13 stone. I'm somewhere, nicely in the middle now. And that's kind of like the story of my life. I'm balance. I want to be, it's not black and white anymore. I used to think that in between black and white was grey, but actually it's like the whole rainbow of colours, the whole spectrum. And in between black and white is really exciting for me. And without any, my sister, who's got 41 years, she was going, Lizzy, you're an addict. You're an addict. Please listen to me. Just get to a meeting. I'm going, I'm not going anywhere near that. They're God freaks. They're all religious nutters. And it turns out that you're not. Okay, thank you, Dean. A right to a God of our understanding is total. And I have a higher power. I am a spiritual human being. I am filled with love. And I am beyond grateful for these rooms and for all of you for helping me to get a second chance at life. It's been such an amazing journey. I kind of wish I'd done it earlier. But I want to remain clean and carry the message and enjoy and cross that bridge to cross the bridge to normal living. People say that. I don't feel like I did when I first got clean. I feel like an entirely different person. I speak differently, I look differently, I am different. I have changed beyond recognition, and I couldn't have done it without those books and you all. So if I can do it, anybody can. So just keep coming back. Thank you.